Welcome to week 17, Waiver Wire episode. Probably the last week of playoffs for many of our listeners. Hopefully, you aren't looking for any players on the waiver wire, but we did have a couple of key injuries this weekend that might send you scrambling a little bit. It is exciting, though, because we're going into week 17. We're filming this on Monday. We have Monday Night Football tonight. Then we have Wednesday, Thursday, Saturday, Sunday, and Monday football in the next week. So out of the next 8 nights, we have 6 nights of football.
Sounds like fun. We're going to spread those fantasy championships over the entire week, and nobody's going to know if they're going to win for the entire week. And you're going to have little pieces of scores coming in.
I don't know if
I
that's
have
good or
one.
if that's frustrating.
It's a little bit dramatic usually, so it's going to stretch mine out all week like crazy. So I am in one of my fantasy championships, and basically it's Derrick Henry against Saquon Barkley, and we'll see how that's going to end up. But I'll see what Derrick Henry's got on Wednesday, and then I'm going to have to wait till later in the weekend to see what Saquon Barkley can do.
Yeah, and he might be impacted by one of the injury report news. So let's jump into the week 16 injury reports and who you might be looking for a replacement for. First of all, Tank Dell, Houston. We saw that terrible injury. His season's over. It's a torn ACL, a dislocated kneecap. Don't watch it.
I did. It was bad. I kept watching it, trying to figure out what happened, and it was bad. Yeah. In some interesting news, the Texans today claimed Deontay Johnson off of waivers after the Baltimore Ravens had dropped him. He basically told him he didn't want to play for him. And so they released him and the Texans claimed him. So it's going to be interesting to see if he'll play for the Texans. And super interesting because 2 days from now they play each other.
So he might get to go and play against the team he did not want to play for.
Another wide receiver that had a rough weekend was Xavier Worthy for the Kansas City Chiefs, and he had an ankle injury. He left, but he did return, but it is a short week, so we'll have to watch the practice reports to see if he's practicing and if he can make it. Most likely he will, since he did return to the game. He'll be back and available this Wednesday.
Then we have Jalen Hurts, who went out with that concussion. It was a first quarter concussion, too. These tend to be 10-day rests, which would mean he's not in next Sunday against the Cowboys. That impacting your Saquon Barkley opponent?
Yeah, we'll see what happens against the Cowboys. I don't think that whoever's at quarterback is going to make a difference for Saquon Barkley against the Cowboys, but they'll have the Cowboys will have to worry a little bit less about Kenny Pickett running than they did about Jalen Hurts. Then we had James Conner. This one did affect me a lot. James Conner for the Arizona Cardinals left with a knee injury in the third quarter and he didn't return. I keep looking for official word on this. He had a hyperextension and there is some concern that this could be season injury, but I have not heard any official word. James Conner I do have, so I'm maybe looking to replace him. I'm lucky enough that I also have Bucky Irving that could go in. But if you're not that lucky, keep listening and we'll have some suggested running backs that you may want to pick up.
Another one on the early round draft picks is Drake London, who left with the hamstring injury. Hamstring injuries are hard.
They are hard. So we always hesitate on those hamstrings injuries because they don't usually respond real well quickly. So we'll have to wait and see if London is able to play, if he's able to practice. He did say that he could have returned to the game. It was just precautionary. So maybe they caught it early enough that he will be in this weekend. The Falcons took a lead in the NFC South when Tampa Bay lost to Dallas. They're now tied, but the Falcons had swept Tampa Bay this year, so they win the tiebreaker. They've got to look to stay ahead, and they have a tougher schedule than Tampa Bay does, especially playing the Washington Commanders this weekend.
Josh Allen took some hits, has taken some hits this whole season, and now he's injured his elbow. He's been playing most of the season with that left hand fracture, but now he's also got a right hand injury.
Now he landed on that elbow. He got up shaking it around, had to go out, said he didn't have any feeling in his hand and his throwing hand now. And it does get a little bit interesting because the Bills are chasing the Chiefs for the top spot in the AFC for that bye. Kansas City plays on Wednesday and they can seal the top spot with a win. So if the Chiefs win, the Bills aren't playing for anything really. They've already got their division. I guess they're playing for seeding, but I don't even know that that can change for them as well. And they get to play New England next week. So they don't have a tough schedule coming up this week or next week. This week is against the Jets. We all know that Allen wants to play, and if he can, he'll be in there, but he's got to be trying to get a little bit healthy going into the playoffs.
In similar hand arm injuries, Jalen Tolbert has a finger injury. Dallas wide receivers are beat up with CeeDee Lamb also having his shoulder injury re-aggravated.
They are. You're probably not using them, and not if you're in a championship. Maybe if you're playing for your toilet bowl or consolation bracket. But you haven't been depending on those Cowboy wide receivers to get to a championship. One that you may have been using was George Pickens, and he has a real chance of playing. He's not a new injury, but he's showing up on our list because supposedly we may see him back this week against the Chiefs on Wednesday. He's missed 3 games, and the Steelers really need Pickens back in that lineup.
One that I was sad to see happen, Kenneth Walker with the Seattle running back left with an ankle injury in the fourth quarter. They play Thursday night this week against the Bears, so definitely keep an eye on that because both Charbonnet and Kenneth Walker III are now a bit banged up on that team.
They are. I believe that Zach Charbonnet is fine though when he can play, so he's not going to be on our pickup list. He is definitely worth checking, but I think a few weeks ago, most everyone went out scrambling to pick up Charbonnet and may be sitting on rosters. You can check in short leagues where you don't have a big roster, then somebody may have dropped him, and he's worth looking to see if you can pick up. Don't love that matchup against the Bears. They could have a good game. We'll see. And then the other one that we saw over the weekend was Aaron Rodgers had a high ankle sprain and he may miss the last 2 games. Nobody's depending on Aaron Rodgers though.
Let's jump in then who maybe we should be looking to pick up if possible if you have one of those injuries.
Yeah, let's start with wide receivers because that's where we seem to have the most issues right now. And if you're looking for a wide receiver, I would suggest Jalen McMillian for Tampa Bay, 60% available. Next 2 games are against Carolina and New Orleans. Tampa Bay lost to Dallas on Sunday night, and now the Falcons are leading that division, as we just mentioned. So Tampa Bay is trying to catch up. They need to win both of these games and hope that the Falcons lose since the Falcons own the tiebreaker. Both of these are home matchups with Carolina and New Orleans. He's getting a consistent 7 targets and being used in the red zone now. So originally when he came in, he wasn't getting used in the red zone, and now he's seeing the red zone targets as well. And he's had at least 1 touchdown in the last 3 games. This weekend, K. Dotton was out, and especially if K. Dotton is out again, we see a lot more usage of Jalen McMillian.
One that I was excited to see on our list is Hollywood Brown. We had that sternoclavicular injury at the beginning of the season and then finally played this past weekend. Hollywood Brown 70% available. He was going to be
Next
a
up is
high draft pick.
Pittsburgh. Yeah, next up is Pittsburgh, which isn't a great matchup for him, but it got better because the Pittsburgh star cornerback Joey Porter is out, so he should be a little bit more free to run and catch passes. I kind of thought that they would ease him back in a little bit, but in his first game back, he caught 5 out of 8 targets. He didn't end up in the end zone, but you know that they're going to try to get him there. He has a high ceiling with the upcoming game Wednesday against Pittsburgh as the Chiefs want to just close this out and lock up that top spot. I can see him being used and this being a big passing matchup.
Let's continue on to running backs. I think we have a couple. Gus Edwards, we've talked about previously, showing back up here, 50% available.
Yeah, only 50% available, but he gets to play the New England Patriots. So you definitely need to be looking for him to see if he's out there. And then after that is the Las Vegas Raiders. He's the only back really in for the Chargers. And we know that the Chargers love to run the ball. New England is allowing the fourth most rushing yards to running backs. It looks good. I mean, last weekend, the Patriots made James Cook look amazing with the Bills running for 100 yards and a touchdown. Gus Edwards can step in and do it, and they'll definitely give him the chance to do it.
I think our other recommendation had a pretty good day too this past Sunday. Tyjae Spears with the
He
Titans.
did. Yeah, so that Titans game against the Colts, we all thought it was over and that the Colts were gonna run away with it, and then the Titans came storming back, and part of that was Tyjae Spears. He gets the goal line carries and had 2 touchdowns. He only carried the ball 10 times and 27 yards, but he still got it when it counted and got the big points. And Tony Pollard didn't practice all last week, but he still played. He just doesn't look good, and Tyjae Spears looked a lot better. We'll see if the whole trend continues for the red zone, but yeah, next up, they've got Jacksonville and Houston, 2 pretty good matchups as well. So, Tyjae Spears may be out there, only 50% available. Again, you can look for Zach Charbonnet as well and see one of the 3 ought to be out there.
Well, let's chat quarterbacks because if you may have Jalen Hurts and he may not play this next weekend, and you may not be a two quarterback carry person. So, who would you be looking to pick up?
I'd first look for Bo Nix. He's only 30% available, but if you're one of those lucky people where he is available in your league, guess what? He's got the Bengals next. So Cincinnati is the next up for Bo Nix, and he's coming off a really strong game against the Chargers where he threw the ball 40 times and completed 29 of those, but no interceptions this time around, unlike that disastrous Colts game a couple weeks ago. There's just such big upside potential here in this game against the Bengals because this could throw into a big pass fest where we're just seeing them go back and forth and trying to exchange touchdowns.
What about Bryce Young? Bryce Young's been looking pretty good the last couple of weeks.
Yeah, so this one's 95% available with Bryce Young. Next up, guess what? He's got the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, who also like to throw the ball, but also like to let their opponents throw the ball as well. He's been improving each week. And last week, he passed for 2 touchdowns and ran for another. I have him in best ball. He's not going to quite be enough for me, but he really showed up for me in best ball, and that was really awesome. He was worth 23 fantasy points when they played Tampa Bay a few weeks ago here in Carolina. This one is in Tampa Bay, but it's not like it's going to be cold. He should be fine and good to go. So I like Bryce Young in this matchup. After that, he plays Atlanta, a little bit more difficult, but still a good matchup for him.
Let's chat tight ends because hopefully you don't have Kyle Pitts still, but if you do, maybe you're looking for someone else.
Yeah, the usual suspects are on the list as well, which like Hunter Henry, which we're not gonna talk through again because I think we've probably talked through him 6 times on this waiver wire list. But then the new one is Dalton Schultz for Houston. Houston did seem to go to Schultz more this week, especially after the Tank Dell injury. He's 50% available. Next up, he's got Baltimore on this short week and then Tennessee. Their next wide receiver is John Mechie, but he has a shoulder injury and was inactive last week. And that's one of the reasons that they're looking more to Dalton Schultz to pick up some of that gap because he at least has been around the team and knows all of the plays. Schultz had 8 targets in the game against Kansas City and a touchdown, and he was tied in 4 for the week prior to Monday Night Football.
What about defenses? Are you streaming a defense through the playoffs, or did you pick one up and stick with it for the playoffs?
I haven't looked for next week yet. I'll have to make that evaluation. But if you're streaming one, the big one to stream this week is the Indianapolis Colts. And you may be either streaming them or preventing your opponent from streaming them and trying to pick them up. They're about 50% available. And this week they get to play the New York Giants. Next week they get to play the Jacksonville Jaguars in the case that your league plays in week 18. I hope that's not the case because it really sucks to play in week 18 and try to figure out who's going to actually be playing their starters. Drew Lock threw 2 pick sixes in Sunday, and now the Colts get to see if they can get a pick six out of the New York Giants as well. We don't know if they'll see Drew Lock or if it'll be Tommy DeVito or Tim Boyle, but it really doesn't matter, does it? Lock has been sacked 11 times in his 3 starts. So I'd like the Indianapolis Colts to get after him a little bit, and they're still trying to make the playoffs as well.
The Colts, not the Giants. Giants are definitely
Yes, the
out.
Colts. Yeah, yeah, for sure. And then Cleveland Browns, they're playing the Miami Dolphins. Now, it doesn't sound like you should, a normal streaming defense, but the Dolphins in Cleveland at the end of December, that sounds like something that I can get behind on the defense.
Bring in their pounds of scuba gear again, maybe.
I guess, yeah. We'll see what they bring with them to stay warm this time around. And the only other one are the Washington Commanders. They're hosting the Falcons. You could feel things change in the Commanders Eagles game when Hurts left that game on Sunday. And I think it just gave like new life to the Commanders. And then Jaden Daniels went crazy and they won that game in dramatic fashion. I think Jaden Daniels is like the luckiest person on earth, and it's fun to watch him. They can still win the division, but they would need 2 wins and 2 Eagles losses. They get to play Michael Penix Jr., a rookie with his first start on the road. It's a good situation for a defense if you can pick them up.
Well, I think that covers all the spots. Hopefully, you're not headed to the waiver wires, but if you are, good luck. Good luck finding someone on this list or someone that maybe someone else dropped that you didn't realize was dropped. We have our DFS fun this week because there's football. We're doing a mini DFS episode. Check that out and join us in our DraftKings contest. Both those links will be in the description. Happy
Good
holidays, y'all.
luck.
Good luck.
Yeah. Good luck.